I was born to sing for others' pleasure, an opera girl, a courtesan trained to bow, smile, and bleed beauty on command. And like a moth to a flame I fell for him, the heir to the Northvale King, a man too radiant to touch. He'd cover my eyes and murmur, "My pretty little Chu Chu," and I'd believe for a heartbeat that I was someone worth loving. Then I saw Joanna Chu, the Marquis of Southmere's trueborn daughter, her face a mirror of mine, except her eyes held the light I never had. That was the day I learned the difference between being loved and being used. Chapter 1. Clara Chu, don't try my patience. His hand locked hard around my waist. The cool lines of Julian Zhao's brows showed a trace of irritation. I braced on his shoulder, lifted myself to make a bit of space, and kissed him carefully. Before Julian, I could never be a proper young lady of a marquis's house. I was only a cheap stand-in, a wanton actress. My obedience pleased him. His long brows lifted, heat reddened the corners of his eyes. In a good mood, he unfastened my sash, leisurely, piece by piece, and scattered the hairpins from my crown. A sparrow on a high branch does not become a phoenix. So I could only steal moments with the noble heir. No matchmaker, no promise. On a painted barge, rocking on the lake of serenity while people drifted by. Daylight sank. He tidied my clothes, still hoarse from indulgence, pinched my cheek, and said, "Go back." Then he slid off the bed in one clean move and left me with the slim, lap-tall line of his back. I lowered my eyes to the messy bedding. My sight blurred for no reason. At supper in our estate, my parents kept adding food to my bowl. They must have felt sorry for my years away from home. Even my sister, whom I envied to madness, looked soft and gentle. It felt like only I was trapped in it, unable to wash the lowliness from my bones. If they knew what I was, would they be disappointed? Staring at the bronze mirror, I fell into memory. It was my first time on stage. My palms were wet with nerves. When the last note ended, I panted lightly and glanced at the crowd. The cheers made me smile. But as I stepped off, the crude whispers reached me. "Fresh little thing, huh?" That waist twist hit me right in the heart. "Ha ha ha, not your turn. She'll be kept by some lord any day now." I'd hide by the wall to hear her. That voice could melt a man's bones. I fled, almost stumbling, face bloodless. But I had grown up in the house of sorrow. A courtesan's house. I knew they weren't wrong. I would be a mistress in the end. When a fat official reached for me, Julian tossed down his robe and covered me with it, almost carelessly. Through the slit of that robe, under a garden full of peach blossoms, I looked at him. Skin like jade, reserved and aristocratic brows, straight nose, thin lips. He blended into that lush, suggestive garden and became part of that perfect view that struck straight into my heart. After the crowd left, I dared to look at him openly. He seemed a little tired. "Thank you, sir. You offended Lord Liu for me today." I twisted my sleeve, worried I'd dragged him into trouble. His gaze paused on me for a beat. Then he smiled lightly. "Don't worry." After that, Julian came to the House of Sorrow every day. He sat and listened to me sing. When the song ended, he left a silver reward and went. I slowly understood he was someone noble. My foolish admiration died down, too high to reach. But the troop master pushed me to climb anyway. I gritted my teeth through every beating and insult to guard what little dignity I had. Julian appeared again like before, wiping the blood from the corner of my mouth. "Shall I take you away?" His gentleness tricked me into thinking we were equals. I was bewitched. On my winter birthday, he held an umbrella to shield me from snow and gave me a jade hairpin. Compared to birthdays spent hungry in the past, the longevity noodles he bought me taught me this. From then on, I could no longer refuse this man. Even though now I was the second young lady who returned from the south territory, restored to the Chu Marquis estate. I'd been beaten and raised in the House of Sorrow. I knew nothing of my birth, until Julian told me suddenly that I was the Marquis of Southmere's second legitimate daughter, then took me through wind and snow back to the capital to acknowledge my kin. He hid everything about us. My parents worked hard to give me a clean past. They didn't know I was no longer untouched, and still drowning in it. Mother cried as she held me, and in her sobs I heard something off. The year I was lost, I was 7. How could I remember nothing? I had stayed quietly in a well-guarded Marquis' estate. How could I be stolen? What kind of plot was I meant to carry? I went with Mother to worship at Garin Temple. When we rose, I saw Joanna still kneeling devoutly. I suddenly felt she was one of the gods above. How could a firefly compete with the moon? I didn't even dare to be jealous. Mother fasted 3 days at the temple. I didn't expect Julian to slip into my room at midnight. He caught my ankle, clicked his tongue. "You're strong." "I didn't know it was you," I muttered, trying to pull my foot back. He hummed, sounding in good spirits. He spoke little. With him, I grew quiet too. I didn't ask why he came. I only yielded. He didn't stay the night. I thought he had come only for pleasure. The next day, when Joanna dragged me up the back hill to hang prayer pouches, I understood. Pleasure was only a side errand. He had come for the woman he couldn't have. While I watched my sister struggle to tie the pouch to a high branch, a shadow fell beside me. "Miss Chu, let me help you," Julian said from at my side, looking where I looked. Joanna held the trunk and turned, eyes curved in a smile. "Thank you, your lordship, I can do it." My hand clenched tight inside my sleeve. Shame and sourness flooded me. When Joanna finished, she ran over. "Clara, your turn." The man beside me made no sound at all. The temple's noise swallowed me, pushed me into a pit. I gripped the pouch and smiled. "Sister, I don't believe in this, and they say a pouch only works when you hang it for the one you love." "Really?" She tugged my sleeve, surprised. "Just a folk joke. Let's go." "Your lordship, as you please." I still smiled at Julian. His expression was cool in a strange way. He lifted his chin the tiniest bit. He was in a foul mood. He didn't want to be my beloved, and he couldn't be hers. In all of Garan Temple, only he and I shared the same feeling. In Yang City, without Joanna to compare, I lived in a dream. I took his coldness as tiredness, his distraction as business, timid as a startled bird. I tried so hard to please him. I took that jade hairpin as proof he loved me. I guarded that make-believe love like a fool. And now, he must have lost ground with the one he wanted. He came to my room again and cut off my thoughts. "What are you thinking?" Julian wrapped an arm around my waist and pressed his lips to mine. For some reason, my heart resisted. The old thrill was gone. I turned my face away. His temper wasn't good. That refusal was enough to chill his face. He pinched my chin. "Clara Chu, what are you playing at?" His grip was strong. It hurt. My question stuck in my throat. I didn't dare refuse a prince. I pushed him hard and ran. I knew he wouldn't chase me. But running blind was a good way to vent. The muddled haze drained from me, and I got lost. Pear blossoms hid the paths. I stood there, blank. I ran in circles and still couldn't find the edge. "I'll take you out." A cool voice sounded behind me. I turned. A man in white stood there like he had stepped down from the moon. He walked across a ground of fallen blossoms. Nothing else touched his eyes. Even without hearing it before, I knew that way of address. It was the Crown Prince, Adrian Zhao. He had a presence that made you bow. I bent at once. "Your Highness?" We walked a while, still no sign of the forest's edge. I risked offense. "Your Highness, are you also?" He stopped. I didn't stop in time and bumped his back, my hand bracing his waist. I sprang back to salute, but my heel hit a broken branch. I twisted my ankle and fell. He turned, bent, and held out a hand like carved jade. His voice soothed. "Can you stand?" I didn't dare refuse a prince. I took his hand and rose, only to feel the pain. He noticed. "Sit by the tree, I'll take a look." Some people are born to command a realm. I obeyed before I could think. Only after I sat did I realize the impropriety. But Adrian had already folded his robe and crouched before me. His cool fingers held my ankle. His voice was cool too, but calming. "It'll hurt a little. Bear it." He had already twisted the joint as he spoke. My face went white, but relief followed quickly. "Thank you, Your Highness. It's fine." He stood beside me and blocked the sun. Shade fell over my head. I looked up at his profile, lid almost translucent, and my heart turned. The heir of the realm, kind to a stranger. While the heir of Northvale treated his bed partner from on high, with no trace of first tenderness. Why was I doing this to myself? Adrian's guards finally found us, but every step stabbed my ankle. He glanced down at me, took off his cloak and covered my head, then lifted me into his arms. "Forgive me." A crisp, cold scent, distant yet gentle. "Thank you, Your Highness. My room is the south wing." My voice was muffled under the cloak. He set me down in a hidden corner of the south wing's back court. I handed the cloak back and thanked him again. He only rested it over his arm and looked at me once. "Put some medicine on it." I limped inside. I knew Julian wouldn't be there. Still, The darkness of the room made my heart sink. How far must I go to forget the debt of being pulled from that hell? When Mother's fast ended and we left the temple, she saw my ankle and scolded me, distressed. Julian didn't come for many days. I wasn't as anxious as before. My mood was strangely calm. But my monthly bleeding was 6 days late. Panic rose. I hadn't taken medicine at the temple. If I sought a doctor, people might talk, so I steeled myself and reached out to Julian, who might already be tired of me. I felt helpless. If I had a child, what would he do? What would he do with me? Still, I couldn't help it. My quiet heart stirred again. I began to hope. Maybe a child could change us. Maybe we'd have a future. I guessed he would come at night and left a slit in the window. I curled on the bed and waited. He came early and soundlessly. "Why didn't you take the medicine?" He stood by my bed. His gaze was still, from above, like a favor cast down. For a second I felt I was back on the stage at the House of Sorrow, receiving every kind of stare. I shivered and hugged myself tighter, trying to ward off the cold. I forgot, and I didn't dare see a doctor. Someone might notice. Feign illness in the morning. I understood. He would arrange for a physician. I nodded. Silence spread. He didn't plan to stay. He didn't move either. I thought a little from that earlier chill. Clinging to a last hope, I asked for his judgment. "If there is a child, would you marry me?" He would hate marrying me like this, but he had no other way. He couldn't have Joanna. Joanna cared only for Buddha. When I went missing years ago, my parents decided to keep her close forever. They set up a family shrine so she could devote herself at home. If only I were like her, empty, at peace. But I was full of wanting. "This child shouldn't be kept," Julian said at last, after a long look. Of course, a child from secret indulgence. The child of a singing girl, kept for pleasure. How could it stay? A hard knot rose in my throat. I couldn't breathe. My head throbbed. "Go, I'm tired." I forced the words out, calm in tone, though I knew this time I had sent him away and would not let him return. He didn't understand. Or didn't care. He nodded and, as if kindly, told me to rest well. How, if I were truly pregnant, I would be the executioner in the morning. I would kill my own child. How could I sleep? Maybe the strain broke me. I truly couldn't get up the next day. The family doctor said I'd caught a chill. When no one watched, he shook his head at me. My heart settled. Not pregnant. Thinking he would carry this good news to Julian, I couldn't help a laugh at his hunched back. When Joanna brought me medicine, I was packing the things Julian had given me. "This hairpin is beautiful. Why don't you wear it?" I looked down at my birthday gift. Something shifted in my heart. I tightened my grip. "Do you like it, sister?" "I plan to pawn it." "I do. I love magnolias." "I don't. I love peaches, pears, crabapple blossoms, but I love this hairpin." I thought it proved Julian had once loved me most. Another delusion. I had never dared wear it. Today, it could return to its rightful owner. "If you don't mind that it was given to me, you may have it." She passed me the medicine bowl. "I'm no saint. I won't take what others cherish. You clearly love it." I drained the bitter bowl and smiled, shaking my head. Then I put the rest into a wooden chest. I was idly sketching when a sudden bang made my brush bleed ink. The wooden chest slammed down in front of me. I looked up. Julian stood at my table with an ugly face, ready to accuse. Bright day, and he entered the Chu Marquis estate as if no one could stop him, then scolded the household. "So this was the power of Northvale's heir? You pawned what I gave you?" His voice was so cold I couldn't hold my brush. I set the brush aside. "Your lordship gave it to me. Isn't it mine to do with as I like?" He hadn't expected the ever-obedient me to talk back. He stared, then bent and pinched my chin, narrowing his eyes. "What do you mean?" "I want to cut ties with you." I was terrified inside, but forced myself to speak clearly. His grip vanished. He gave a short, cold laugh. "Do you want a break, or do you want to force me to marry you?" My face burned at once. Not from shyness, from anger, from shame. I wanted to claw his face. My voice shook. "When have I ever forced you? I'm too low to marry you." He tapped the table twice. His face stayed like ice. "As you wish." When he left, a draft of cold seemed to linger without end. I curled in the chair and hugged myself, crying with cold. They say actors are heartless. We are also too full of heart. So full that my tears wouldn't stop. Winter deepened. The royal hunt arrived. Mother sent me a red riding outfit. Joanna grabbed my hand, eyes bright, praising me pretty. That honest delight swept the gloom from my chest. I hadn't expected to wear the same cut and color as Lydia Zhao, Duke Cheng's legitimate daughter. The patterns differed, but the look was the same. Her face fell at once. Joanna half shielded me. Lydia is infatuated with the heir of Northvale. She must have heard he escorted you back from the south and is picking a fight. Don't be afraid. Her protective profile warmed me. A country girl, even if recognized, so what? Lydia looked me up and down. Her eyes mixed contempt with jealousy. Duke Cheng once saved the throne. With nothing else to grant, the emperor made his only daughter a lady of rank. But Duke Cheng held no real power. My father commanded 200,000 troops. I didn't fear her. My parents gave me a spine. In front of anyone but Julian, I could lift my head. Before we could answer, Adrian rode by. He tightened the reins, cast Lydia a cool glance, then signaled to the men behind him. Take Lydia away to learn some manners. Light as a breeze. No mockery. He didn't even look at anyone. A man in high place, keeping order. No one present dared speak. I didn't know whether to thank him. I turned my head, trying to send my look to him. He met my eyes. A small curve lifted his thin lips. His sharp chin dipped. He looked almost gentle, like a god stepping off his altar. My mouth fell open. He had already ridden past with his retinue. Only then did I notice Julian. He rode a place behind Adrian. As he passed, he gave me a thick look, anger and something else I couldn't name. Women hunted the outskirts. Men went deeper. Maybe I took after father. Though I'd learned riding and archery for only months, I had a feel for it. Father always laughed and praised me. If you were a boy, Clara, you'd shake the battlefield and freeze the enemy's guts. I drew and aimed at a resting deer. Suddenly, a red fox flashed from the southwest. Such a nimble spirit shouldn't appear in the outskirts. My hands moved faster than thought. I turned and loosed. At the same time, another arrow came from deep in the woods. Both hind legs struck. The little fox dropped in a heap. I tugged the reins and rode over. Dismounted. In its back leg was a silver-veined feathered arrow. The crown prince, hoofbeats sounded. Adrian, Julian, and a few young lords rode up. Your Highness, I said, stepping back and bowing. Adrian lifted a hand. He had already seen my simple wooden arrow lodged there too. One lively lord forgot himself and blurted praise. Miss Chu? Adrian said, brows lifting, interest warming his cool gaze. A woman as fierce as any man. I shook my head fast. You flatter me. Your Highness drove the fox from the deep woods. It was only close to me. He laughed softly, clear as the forest wind. Suddenly it felt teasing. Modest. Foxes are the hardest to take. He bent, picked up the fox, snapped both arrows short with his sword and held it out. Before I could refuse, the fox whimpered in his arms. Its eyes were wet and pitiful. My heart went soft. I wanted to keep it. What should I do? He saw my hesitation and smiled, indulgent, scratching its chin. You caught it by skill, Miss Chu. How long must I hold it for you? Carefully, I took the fox. Thank you, Your Highness, for the gift. You remind me, I should give a proper gift. I dare not. Before I could kneel, he steadied my arm and unhooked the wild dragon jade pendant from his belt, placing it in my hand. A prince's jade, as if he stood with me in person. How could I accept? But his gaze was clear and calm. It made one yield. I couldn't say no. Only after he and the others disappeared did I hug the little thing and mount up. I had just turned my horse when Julian spoke. Clara. Anger and frustration hid under his voice. More command than care. The fox had taken 2 arrows. Not fatal, but it hurt. I stroked its head and didn't stop. I turned my horse away. So the crown prince glances your way, and you? He pressed his heels and came up. He didn't see he mocked me, looked down on me, because his face was as cold as ever. I met his eyes, cool. Yes, will the heir of Northvale watch me kneel with that jade in hand? If not, let me pass. The little one is in pain. His face sank, as I knew it would. Lips tight, brows drawn. He said nothing. I tightened my hold on the fox, gathered the reins and galloped off. Back at camp, the imperial physician treated the wounds. Not long after, the fox dozed, limp with sleep. I sat with it a while. Then, thinking it would be hungry later, I took up my bow again. I lifted the flap and saw Adrian coming. Silver riding clothes, silver crown, cool eyes. He held 2 game birds in one hand, which somehow didn't match him. I picked these up for your fox. Does it have a name? I took them and shook my head. Not yet. Would your Highness name it? He smiled, looking down. Flame. I thought of the little ball of fire in my arms and laughed. It fit. Great Joe prized the art of war. After the banquet, the emperor smilingly suggested the young lords and ladies draw lots and pair up for archery. By chance, Adrian and I both drew the first lot. When I saw Joanna paired with Julian, my heart thudded and my fingers tightened on the slip. Before I could read my own feelings, General Chi's daughter, Rena Chi, whispered to Joanna. They swapped lots. So many favored Julian. No wonder he looked down on the dust. I lowered my eyes and went to Adrian. His cool voice came. Don't be nervous. I haven't trained long. I'm afraid I'll slow you down, Your Highness. He ran a hand along his full moon bow. A hint of warmth softened his features. It's fine. With the Crown Prince, everything felt steady. Some people fight to win. Some never lose their calm. As first lot, we had to shoot the opening arrow. I took a breath, aimed at the center, drew and loosed. The string sang. Cheers rose around me. I couldn't help looking back. Adrian's eyes curved a little. Not a big smile, just warm. After several rounds, it came down to us versus Julian and Rena Chi. Julian glanced at me, then turned to Adrian. Your Highness, if I win, I'd like a prize. A soft sound from Adrian as he smoothed an arrow's fletching. Name it. I want the fox Your Highness brought down. A hand seemed to clutch my heart. I knew Adrian would refuse. Still I tensed. Tense and bitter. So bitter my hands shook. That fox is Miss Chu's, Adrian said, brows faintly drawn. Pick something else. Julian seemed to realize. He pressed his lips together. Then, Your Highness's full moon bow? All right. He didn't hesitate. Yet I remembered the tenderness with which he'd touched that bow on entering the range. For the first time, I wanted to win. Badly. In the last round, our turns came late. When Julian split the center arrow and struck the red again, my heart sank. Our eyes met. Beneath his chill, I saw a flicker of joy. A child's joy, showing off that he knew many characters. It stunned me for a beat. Amid the cheers, Rena Chi sent her arrow at a sly angle into the crowded red. Adrian split the feather of the center shaft. It came down to me. Everyone waited. My bow hand trembled. Don't be afraid. I trust you, Adrian said, steadying the bow that slipped in my grip. Trust me? To win? No one had ever trusted me. I was only a worthless singing girl. But the most exalted man in the realm said he trusted me. I had never cried while being beaten or scolded. In that moment, I almost did. I swallowed it back and looked at him. Your Highness, I won't let you lose. His eyes, always calm with a hidden gentleness, darkened. He gathered every ripple. His voice turned a shade husky. Good. I fixed on the center shaft. My arm trembled with fatigue. I let go. The arrow split the tail of the feather. Wood cracked. It buried itself in the absolute center. Silence. Then a roar of cheers and clapping. I switched the bow to my left hand and smiled at Adrian. The sun was low. The sky behind him was brocade with color. He seemed not of this world, a god from the heavens. Excellent. A tiger father breeds no weak child. I will reward you well. The emperor's applause pulled my gaze away. As I lowered my eyes, I caught Julian in the shade, all feeling hidden, except the cold he couldn't smother. Chapter 2. After receiving the reward, many came to congratulate us. Seeing how tired Joanna was, I signaled for her to go first. Only after I finished with them did I walk back alone toward camp, facing the last light at the edge of the sky. We would leave tomorrow. Though it was deep winter and the land was bare, this hunting ground made me oddly light, as if I had found my place. Clara Chu. Adrian Zhao's clear voice sounded behind me. I stopped and turned. He was holding a small medicine bottle. Pour this into hot water. Soak your right arm. It will feel much better by morning. Thank you, Your Highness. I took the bottle from him. He noticed more than I expected. Only he had seen I'd strained my arm. Back at the tent, I suddenly remembered Flame must be awake. Would Your Highness like to see Flame? I tipped my head and looked up at him. If he came, I could warm milk and share it with him. He didn't seem to expect that. For a moment he stared, the jade lines of his face gaining an unexpected, almost boyish charm. Before I could fix my shameless invitation, he smiled. All right. Like a leaf landing on water, sending out soft rings. We lifted the curtain. Flame's hind legs were slung over the edge of the bed while his forepaws braced the floor, red fur dusty. Such a restless little thing. Adrian's brows curved. He scooped the fox into his arms and with a towel rubbed him gently. I stared at his flawless profile and drifted a moment. How could someone wear a face of cold restraint and yet hold such a gentle, clean heart? I came back to myself, quietly told the attendants outside what to bring, and then sat not far from him and began to work slowly. The smell of warm milk spread. Flame is hungry. I turned and saw little red ball wriggle to get out of his arms, forgetting his hind legs couldn't touch the ground. I snorted. Greedy little thing. Adrian actually raised a brow. Then I am greedy too. My heartbeat stumbled. The tone and look on his face were dangerous. I steadied myself and lowered my eyes to the milk. Please wait, Your Highness. It's almost ready. A soft, light as Flame's fur. When the milk was done, I poured it into a porcelain bowl and handed it to him. He blew on it and fed the red glutton with patient care. Flame's eyes were bigger than his belly, hungry, but slow. I finished my bowl while he was still lapping, having hardly made a dent. Let me feed him, Your Highness. Milk is best while hot. I nodded at the other bowl still steaming. Adrian scratched Flame's chin in indulgence. The fox glared, and Adrian took the chance to pass me the bowl. All right? Seeing the little face on the verge of tears, both of us couldn't help but smile. I took the bowl and gathered Flame into my arms, sitting on the edge of the bed. Adrian went to drink his milk. When I looked up, I realized how close we were. His cool fragrance wrapped me. If I leaned in a little, I might commit a liberty with the exalted crown prince. Heat flooded my face. I couldn't control it. I had no excuse for such a reaction and feared he would draw back. But the moment my eyes touched the evening stars in his, the tension vanished. He said nothing. Only the faint lift of his lips showed his good mood. After Adrian left, I called attendants to clear the things and to bring in a tub of hot water. When I poured the medicine in, a faint, cool fragrance rose, like his. I hung up my robes and slid into the wooden tub, eyes closed. The click of jade against jade made me cover my chest and look up. Julian Joe sat before me. His gaze was cold and clear. Not lewd, not taunting. Yet it still burned where it fell. Shame crawled over my skin, my voice shook. Leave. He ignored me, set a small bottle on the table and said lazily, There's no part of you I haven't seen. Seeing the bottle, a thin panic climbed my heart. I was afraid he would be kind. I didn't know why. In the end, he did not disappoint me. He spoke words that shattered the fantasy. I already used medicine, from the Crown Prince. I sank deeper into the water. I didn't argue his near insult. There was nothing to argue. His hand tightened on the jade at his waist. Knuckles whitened, his eyes narrowed. Dangerous. He leaned in. You fought to win today for him, didn't you? To hook the Crown Prince? I had decided to let him go. Even so, those words were knives, slicing through me without care. Yes, I wanted to seduce the Crown Prince. I threw it back at him, hoarse. How could I covet a man as pure as frost and jade? But in that instant, I didn't care for respect. He froze a breath, then rage pooled dark and heavy in his eyes, as if he might kill me. He braced one hand on the tub's rim and crowded me. His thin lips brushed mine. The other hand slid into the water and took me in his grasp. Do you deserve it? My resistance went slack. Sourness swelled in my chest. I had no strength. I dropped my gaze to the water. My face went pale. Not satisfied, he lowered his voice, both sultry and taunting. How many times have you gone to bed with me, and you still dream of the Crown Prince's bed? My heart stopped a beat. My sight blurred. Cold tears streaked my face. I looked up at him like he was a stranger. His hands stilled. Panic, rare on him, flickered across his face. His lips pressed tight as if to explain. I laughed. Let him go. And with everything I had left, I slapped him hard. His skin was ice pale like flawless jade. Now it bloomed red. He touched the mark with his tongue, pressed it once with his fingers, then straightened and gave me a slanting look. We stared in silence. He turned to leave. I watched his slim, upright back. Please, your lordship, let me go. I will repay the debt to the House of Sorrow 100-fold if I ever can. I could not bear more humiliation. He halted and turned his face a little. That's not what I meant. It doesn't matter what you meant. I lost my head and offended your lordship just now. Please forgive me. The water was cooling. I rubbed my arms and mocked myself. The Crown Prince is born to glory. I wouldn't dare dream of him. I'm not even fit to warm his bed. I know my place. Those were angry words. Please don't take them seriously. Julian said nothing. His back teeth clenched. He seemed to force down something. At last he shut his eyes, turned and strode out. Ever since that arrow-splitting shot at the hunt, Father often sighed that I wasn't a son. Then treat me as one, I said, a ripple in my heart. I didn't know if I wanted to meet his hope, or envied something else. He brightened at once. After that, whenever he had time, he dragged me to practice. The drill yard behind the estate, his training ground, became my daily haunt. Clara was born to be a general. I sheathed my sword and wiped sweat from my brow when his voice, half proud, half regretful, came. I only smiled. With nothing pressing to do, I stopped dreaming of marriage. Joanna tended Buddha, I trained. I finished the military texts I'd borrowed and went to the study for more. I was only a bit later than usual. Flame was already pacing at the door in tight circles. Laughing, I scooped him up onto my shoulder. Bored? He was quick and almost human. Soon I stopped treating him like a pet and more like a friend. He lifted a paw and patted my tied hair, then wrinkled his nose. Was that at the sweat? Or my riding clothes? I tapped his head with a book. Bath now. After washing and changing, I ate with Flame, then lit the lamp and read. Days like this, I'd never dared to hope for them. So even though I woke after the hunt with tears on my pillow, I did not blame Julian. His saving me once was a mountain on my heart. On New Year's Eve, our carriage met the Northvale Kings. Father walked ahead with the prince, mother conversed with the princess consort. I fell back with Joanna. After greeting Julian, we walked in silence. Months had passed. He seemed thinner, a little weary, with faint bruising under his eyes. His right thumb rubbed his middle knuckle without thinking. He was nervous. I glanced at Joanna's serene face and lifted a helpless brow. Julian's lips pressed, then pressed again. He had something to say but hesitated. Even he faltered before the one he loved. If your lordship would speak with my sister, I can step away. I looked at him. He had no time to answer before Joanna turned, puzzled. Ah? Julian's face went cold at once. He ground the words out. No, I do not. The air worsened. I lowered my lashes. Forgive me. I had been rude. If he weren't so careful with Joanna, she might have known his heart by now. But Joanna suddenly smiled. I'm going to talk to Mother. She hurried off, leaving the two of us with no chance to refuse. I watched her go, oddly hollow. I had ruined it. Clara Chu, I don't want to let you go. Julian spoke after a long silence. His voice was like ice striking jade and dropped hard on my heart. A cold spread through me. I snapped my head up. He stared back, his look a consuming hunger that would never release me. I had just escaped from a love that had crushed me. Why? My voice came rough and shaking, unlike me. I held his gaze. He turned his eyes aside. I saw his ears slowly redden, and heard the absurd words, I'm used to you, maybe I like you, a little. Don't. For the first time in my life I cut someone off. He turned back, stiff disbelief thin in his eyes and pain he couldn't hide. I let my lids drop. Don't say you like me, don't cheapen it. Silence clotted between us. Then my shoulders were gripped hard. Red tinged the corners of his eyes while his lips went white. Say that again. I learned then his voice could sound like a shattered bell, every emotion crushed inside. Don't. Fine. Cold as a blade, he cut me off and strode ahead, passing even his father and mine. What's wrong with Julian? The princess consort asked softly, her authority like his. I lowered my eyes and lied. His lordship said he was going to the crown prince to find something. She nodded, satisfied, and then beckoned me kindly to come speak with her. While we waited for the fireworks, people chatted in the hall. I had drunk a little too much at dinner. My head spun. I whispered to Mother and stepped out for air. I wandered the plum garden, crunching frozen twigs underfoot, when a strange sound reached me. I stopped and held my breath to listen. Slower. A woman's near whimper. I sobered at once. Hand on the rockery stone, I edged forward. I had just glimpsed the patterned hem of a man's robe when hands dragged me back. I reacted fast, elbow up, kick back, but the man seemed to know my moves. He caught my leg and pressed me into a crevice in the rocks. It was narrow. His chest pinned my back against stone. There was hardly space between us. It's me. Adrian's breath brushed my ear. He barely whispered his name. When I stopped struggling, he let my mouth go, then released my leg. The fisher bent sharply. He had nowhere to put his hands and braced one against the stone by my face. His warm breath fanned the back of my neck. I shivered and pressed into him. He grunted softly. He must have hit a sharp edge. Panic pricked me. Are you all right, Your Highness? I'm fine. He leaned closer. That man hears well. We couldn't get any nearer. He was explaining why he'd pulled me in. That robe, if I wasn't wrong, belonged to the Northvale King. Defiling the palace is a capital crime. How could he dare? Your Highness, I saw. I only wanted to confirm. Royal secrets should rot in the belly. Yet with Adrian I couldn't lie and wanted to lay everything bare. He hadn't expected such honesty. His breath paused. He laughed quietly. Good. My imperial uncle is too loose. I'll look into it. Ice threaded his tone. I could imagine cold stars filling those always cool eyes. We didn't wait long. The sounds faded, clothes rustled, then the garden was quiet. Wind circled and circled, plum petals fell into the crack. Is it clear? Come out. We spoke together. He smiled, steadied my waist, and drew me free. The scent of plum clings. Come to the Eastern Palace first, he said, eyes asking. I went blank a moment. Julian always asked as an order. Adrian stated things like a request. I understood then. It wasn't about rank. One man simply didn't respect me. All right. He smiled faintly and plucked a plum blossom from my hair. My heart thundered. We left the garden, skirted the lake of moonlight, crossed the 9-curve corridor, and reached the Eastern Palace. Like him, it felt cool and quietly gentle. Wind hissed through bamboo. Adrian lit incense at a bronze burner. Smoke slid through his fingers, coiling, suggestive. I drifted closer like I'd been called. He glanced up, one brow barely lifting, and suddenly there was something wickedly charming about him. Realizing myself, I jumped back half a step. But he had expected it. He caught my wrist and guided my hand over the burner. Closer. It felt less like closer to the incense than closer to him. Fragrance wrapped me. That familiar cool scent clung everywhere, entangling. Even after we separated, when I stood on the high terrace to watch the fireworks, every breath was still him. A hand seized my wrist, exactly where Adrian had held me. The heat there had not faded, my heart jolted. I looked up into Julian's shadowed face. Where were you? His voice was low and quiet, and sharp with cold. The plum garden. Thinking of the Northvale King, my thoughts tangled, and for a moment Julian almost looked pitiable. Before I could make up an excuse, he narrowed his eyes, hid his feelings, and smiled in mockery. A tryst with the crown prince? What did you do to be soaked in his cold scent? He always found a way to shame me, to hurt me. I pressed down the ache spreading to my belly and twisted my wrist out of his grip. This is not your lordship's concern. It's New Year's Eve. Please have some mercy with your tongue. I glanced at his bloodless face, unwilling to tangle further, and slipped into the crowd. I stayed home and trained, too bored to go out even for the Phoenix Lantern Festival. Back in Yang City, I had often heard about the capital's Lantern Festival and longed to see it. By bad luck, Joanna fell ill. It's your first festival. Don't be stuck inside for me, she pleaded, clinging to my sleeve. I just shouldn't be in the wind. And I'm sick of lanterns anyway. I only meant to keep you company. I looked at her pale, slender hand and nodded. To keep the fun, I didn't take guards. I dressed as a young man, slung flame on my shoulder, grabbed my coin pouch, and went out. On Vermilion Bird Avenue, lotus lanterns stretched with the crowd to no end. I bought all kinds of food and split it with flame, then solved riddles and won a rabbit lamp. When I reached the pleasure quarter, I ran into Julian. He had several young lords with him. Our eyes met. He cooled at once and let himself be swept into the courtesan's halls. I recalled what he'd said in the palace half a month ago and snorted softly. I bit a sugar figurine and calmed my breathing as I walked to Jade Pavilion Bridge. It was colder than usual this year. The river had frozen. A few stray lanterns lay on the ice. They couldn't drift away. The river choked with drifting lights that I'd imagined didn't appear. My mood fell. A weight I couldn't name pressed on me. I was about to go back when a girl by the bank heaved a lantern and toppled straight through the ice. People surged to the hole, staring, but no one dared go in. My face went white. My heart stopped a beat. When I escaped the House of Sorrow the first time, no one saved me. I was dragged back and beaten. I gripped the bridge rail and swung down to the bank. I set my lantern in flame at the edge. Wait for me. On an iced river, if you can't find the break, you die. The water was cold and black. She was lucky. The stray lights picked her out and her red clothes showed clear. I held my breath, dove, grabbed her collar, and hauled her toward the little red shape above the ice. Breaking the surface, I heard Flame cry out. I laid the girl flat on the bank and pressed water from her chest and breathed for her. The crowd didn't dare make a sound. I glimpsed a mounted party cutting through them. The girl choked and woke. I wiped the water at my brow and lashes and looked toward the riders. Adrian, his lips were thin and tight, his face was severe. He was holding back a near-breaking rage. "Thank," the girl began, then looked at him, pitiful. "Royal, brother? A princess." She tried to sit up. I helped, and his guards brought her cloak with great respect. She took it and, trying to please, turned to give it to me. "Put it on yourself," Adrian said, clipping her short. I had never seen him so angry. The cold spilled out of him. He untied his own white cloak and held it to me. "I will never forget this favor. You mustn't catch a chill." It was freezing. I didn't refuse. I took it and wrapped it around me. "Your thanks, my lord." "Thank heaven," I spoke softly. Even so, I looked around in embarrassment. The ice on his face melted a little. A small smile touched his mouth. We left the crowd together. The princess finally broke and sobbed. "Brother, I was wrong. Don't be mad. I shouldn't have run off while you were helping me with riddles, brother." Return to the palace. 3 copies of selected lyrics, he said without looking at her. His face still showed how much he cared. The late empress died young. The emperor cared little for the 2 sons and 1 daughter she left. Adrian and the princess Susan Zhao were close in age and close in heart. She dared not be spoiled now. She tucked her head in and peeped at me. "Are you the second miss of the Chu family?" "Clara Chu. Don't be so formal. You saved my life. Can I call you Clara?" Her bright eyes fluttered. She was so sweet, it was hard to refuse. "Thank you, Your Highness. You're doing it again." I couldn't help laughing at her fake anger. At the Chu gates, I moved to return the cloak. He lifted a hand. "Mind the cold. I'll fetch it another day." Before I could refuse, Susan chimed in. Yes, if you catch a chill, I'll die of guilt." I lowered my gaze and drew my hand back. "Thank." His soft laugh caught my respectful words. Warm as silk. "Don't stand on form with me, lifesaver." His voice was a gentle hook. If not for the night, my blush would have given me away. I hung Adrian's cloak by the bed, changed out of my wet things, washed quickly, and lifted the quilt to lie down. A knock sounded. I froze, puzzled, and opened the door. Julian stood there. Sweat dotted his brow. His breath was short. He had hurried. "Your lordship?" I asked, not understanding. His eyes dropped to my white night robe. His face went cold again. "I heard you fell in the water. I came to see you." I nodded. "I'm fine. Thank you for your concern." Silence fell and merged with the dark. There seemed nothing else to say. I started to bid him good night and close the door. His gaze slid past me and soured. He had seen the cloak. I knew what cutting words were coming. To sleep tonight, I shoved hard to shut him out. He caught my wrist. Not hard, not soft, but I couldn't move. "The Crown Prince brought you back? You see it, your lordship. Why ask?" He seemed to forget anger. He went pale. An unfamiliar loneliness crossed his face and pressed on my chest. While he stared, I shut the door. When I lay down, his slim shadow still stood on the door. He did not move an inch. Snow began to dust the silhouette. "What are you doing?" My voice was hoarse. The sourness inside wrapped it tight. "I went to the Xiaoyao house tonight. I walked in and walked out. I suddenly found no one else would do, only you. Why is it too late?" I didn't know I was crying until the salt touched my lips. "To me, your lordship will always be light. Only light." It lit my dark past. It was not the present I wanted to hold. He seemed to laugh, softly, with a taste I couldn't name. I forgot when he left. I forgot when I slept. But I knew this. On the Phoenix Lantern Festival in the 23rd year of Ningye, I finally let someone go. Adrian said he would come for the cloak another day. I thought he meant to send me a sign, to close the matter quietly between us. Instead, while I was practicing, he walked through the front gate in full propriety. Father greeted him and led him to the drill yard. My sword point happened to face straight toward him. At the sight of his face, I jerked the blade back and dropped to kneel. He caught my arm. My fault. I shouldn't spy on a fair lady's swordplay. How could he admit fault faster than me? I stared up, my soul drawn by how close he stood. I straightened, stepped back, and steadied my breath. "Your Highness came for your cloak?" His mouth tipped. Something like that. I didn't dwell on the tone. I led him to my little cloud bamboo court. He stopped at the gate like a gentleman and stood under the crabapple tree. "I'll wait here." I had been raised in the house of sorrow and taught never to mind when people crossed the line. A girl's reserve had never felt mine to claim. But now a long warmth, sweet and sour, rose through me. I shut my eyes and ran inside for the cloak. When I handed it over, he drew a crabapple hairpin from his sleeve. "I thought crabapple suits you. I didn't expect to find one in your courtyard. A sign of fate." The way he called me Clara stunned me. I forgot to refuse. He tucked the pin into my hand and I stared, wooden. "At the Lantern Festival you told me not to stand on form," he said, eyes curving. His face was always calm. With that, he felt close as spring. When a god bends down, mortals cannot refuse. I hadn't finished thanking him before his brow lifted, just so, and that hint of charm pressed me silent. After he left, I studied the hairpin. A thin line of jade dust showed in the bud. Freshly carved, my heart sped. I saw my flushed face in the bronze mirror and drew a long breath to drive out the wild thoughts. The pin warmed in my hand. I didn't know what to do with it. I stared a long time, then surrendered and slid it into my hair. I truly liked it. Chapter 3. I closed my book. My gaze fell on the glass lamp by my bed. My chest tightened for no reason. If the Eastern Palace sent rare treasures because I saved the princess, I could understand. But a glass lamp, a wooden doll, hand-copied military texts, I couldn't. "Do you deserve it?" The words from the hunt flashed through my mind. Julian's sneer rang in my ear. How could I? A sharp ache rose pale under my skin. "Clara, in a few days I'll visit Riverton to see your grandparents. Would you like to come?" Mother entered and gently cut off my thoughts. I looked at her kind, careful face and took her hand. "Yes, I'd like to go." She smiled brighter and sat on my bed, chatting in a low voice. Riverton's sight seemed to come alive before me. A change of scene would do me good. "Will your sister come?" Mother shook her head, regretful. "Joanna will be fasting and praying. It's best she stays." Then, as if worried, she added, "Don't be bored. Your cousins are easy to be with." On the day we left, Joanna and Father stood at the gate to see us off. I had always thought them not sentimental, but both eyes were wet. Warmth flooded me. We took a boat south and reached the pay home in Riverton. Grandfather and grandmother gripped my hands, tears coming at once. "Good child, you suffered." They stuffed gifts into my hands. I looked to Mother. She smiled for me to accept. My parents had hidden the details of my loss, afraid gossip would hound me if I returned. Only my grandparents knew. The Pays were merchants for generations. Their network reached everywhere. Even so, they hadn't found me in distant Yang City. My cousins took me everywhere in Riverton. Then floods hit the south. In 3 days, bodies lay in the fields. Riverton sat high and was spared. The city opened its gates to take in some refugees. The Pays set up kitchens. I rose early and worked late, doing what I could against the disaster. I handed a bowl of porridge to a child when slow hoofbeats sounded. I looked up. Adrian? He sat tall in the saddle. The sun set a crown of gold on his head. His face was cool and full of pity. The line for porridge stilled, as if a god had come to save them. They turned to their savior as one. He dismounted. His guards dismounted in a line behind him, discipline like iron. "I thought a fairy had slipped down to help me," he said, the corner of his mouth lifting as he teased. He was at ease. My heart skipped. I bowed. "You flatter me, Your Highness. I've done very little." Then I feared I sounded too distant. My fingers tightened in my sleeve. I corrected myself. "Shall I lead Your Highness to the prefecture?" What was I saying? As if he didn't know where it was. I was about to take it back when he looked down at my crumpled sleeve and smiled. "All right." I led him to the prefecture gate, only to find a dark crowd already there. When they saw him with the reins, they bent as one. "Rise." I tugged his sleeve lightly. I should return to the porridge line. He looked startled for a heartbeat. His eyes deepened. Ugh. Light as ever, and yet oddly he seemed displeased. I pressed my lips together to keep my heart from leaping out of my throat, bowed quickly, and hurried away. No more words, no more thoughts. I was riding toward the refugee camp 7 miles outside Riverton when I ran into Adrian Zhao on the road. He sat his horse and glanced from my face to the lunchbox in my hand. "I finished early today?" Lately he had handled business at the camp every day, registering people, arranging shelter. Meals were irregular and rough. I had begun cooking for him and bringing food daily. It had become a habit. Meeting him on the official road made me realize I had crossed a line. My grip tightened on the box. Then please return to the prefecture early and eat, your highness. I tugged my reins to give him the way. He turned his head, lips pressed. I leave for Peng City tomorrow. As you should. Peng City is worse, I answered, wooden. He sighed, voice cool and gentle. No chance to taste your cooking again. Won't you give that to me? I looked up at his helpless eyes and finally understood. Heat rushed to my cheeks. I held the box out. We rode back together. At the pay gate I felt dazed, my heart unsteady, as if it had run somewhere else. I'll go, he said. I nodded, watching his back as he left, and suddenly remembered my first time going to find him at the camp. He had bent to help an old man who was trying to kneel. The cold aura around him faded. His smile was gentle and comforting. Sunlight crowned him in gold, spotless and distant with mercy. He must have sensed me at the edge of the crowd. He let the old man go and stood straight, meeting my eyes across a sea of people. I knew he was not someone to reach for. Still, my heart shook. When I offered the lunch, he paused a heartbeat. I feared refusal. He only said, "Thank you." 2 words, spoken warm and low, a little hoarse, a little moist. "Clara, why are you standing at the door? Come in," my cousin called, bright voice pulling me back. I shook my head and laughed, went in, and told myself not to think so much. Reading carried me to dusk. I rose to call for bath water, and saw Julian Zhao. "Your lordship, what brings you to Riverton?" I dropped my book and stared in surprise. He usually wore dark robes and kept everyone at a distance. Tonight he was in bright red brocade, hair bound with a silver crown, a jade fan in hand. He looked rakish, almost dangerously beautiful. "I carry an imperial decree to investigate embezzlement in Peng City," he said, lifting his long lids. "I have a lid. Tomorrow night I must attend a debauch at the Yang estate and need a woman with me." The words were serious, but in that attire, they turned to temptation. "You want me to go?" I asked. "Yes. Please help me," he said low, as if he expected me to refuse. "All right." He lifted his chin to look at me. His eyes swelled with unreadable waves. My heart lurched. I added, "I owe you a mountain. Helping you, especially for the people, goes without saying." He gave a brief laugh, hard to read. "I'll fetch you in the morning." Then he left. It was my first time doing such a thing. I was nervous. Before dawn, I dressed light and hid a dagger in my sleeve. When Julian saw me, he raised a brow. "Have you ever seen a lady plainer than me?" "No." I had no comeback. "We ride to Peng City first. I prepared clothes for you there." "This way you can ride easily," he said, smoothing my awkwardness. We pushed the pace, no rest and little talk, and reached Peng City. At the villa called Xuan Residence, he spoke. "You are Clara, my most favored concubine, brought from the capital to accompany me. I'm Xuan Jin, youngest son of the Xuan clan. Quarreled with family, came to Peng to do business. Money isn't a problem, need achievements to show father. Remember?" He flicked open the jade fan and waved it twice. He was a libertine already. "I remember, my lord." "Be at ease," I said, smoothing my hair and smiling into the part. After years in the house of sorrow, I could act better than he. He faltered at my look and angled his face away. "Go change." I obeyed. On the bed lay a gold-red dress. I put it on. It was a lot. The top was a short red jacket with dangling gold gauze ornaments bearing a strip of waist. The skirt was red and thin as wings, fitted to the thighs until it flared at the calves and dropped to the ankles. I bent to fasten a gold anklet, slipped on red embroidered shoes, faced the mirror, and drew my brows and eyes. I pulled a red line from the outer corner to lengthen the gaze. I knew I looked sultry by nature, not like a modest young lady. I usually softened my makeup to seem meek. This time I magnified the allure. Even my own heartbeat stalled. When I opened the door, Julian turned. Silence lay thick. Emotions rolled in his long eyes. I pinched the edge of my skirt, tense. Birds shot from the leaves into the round moon. Their fluttering broke the stillness. "You're beautiful." His voice was hoarse, as if the words were hard to force out, as if he was holding something back. I should have bowed and thanked him, but the moment was too tight. I tilted my eyes and smiled. "Beautiful or not, I'm yours, my lord." "Better to stay in character." He paused, then let out a long breath and laughed. "Sweet mouth, come, I'll show you the world." In the carriage we sat opposite. He lowered his eyes and stirred the censer with a copper stick. I leaned on the wall and feigned sleep. A night breeze lifted the curtain. Outside, Adrian walked in white under the moon, impossible to miss. I stared, thinking he was also in Peng City for relief. In one city, wives and children were scattered while others feasted in wine. Fine meat behind gilded doors and bones freezing in the road, I thought. As if sensing me, Adrian looked back. Moonlight was cold. We met eyes for only a breath before the wind fell and the curtain dropped. Tightness swarmed. Would he recognize me? Would he learn what I was doing with Julian? "What is it?" I must have gone pale. Julian straightened, tossed the copper stick aside, and gripped my arm. The wind lifted the curtain. "I saw the crown prince. Will this affect you?" I asked, steadying myself. His task was clearly secret. Julian's face cooled, his eyes narrowed, his hand tightened. "What are you worried about?" I did not answer. If he doesn't care, nothing happens. If he does care, there's no explaining it. He let me go and leaned back, a trace of mockery in his voice and face. It cut two ways. If Adrian didn't care, I meant nothing. If he did, Julian's work might be ruined, and my past with Julian would be exposed. From then on, even a glance might trouble Adrian. "You've planned long. If you're not afraid to fail, what should I fear? Not afraid of missing your chance to be crown princess?" The lantern's glow painted Julian's face in suggestive light. So handsome. Pity about his mouth. "I never thought of being crown princess," I said, turning away. Silence spread. After a long time, he spoke so softly it almost wasn't there. Emotions tangled in it and made it ache. "I'm sorry. You will never owe me. Not ever." "It's fine. We're here." The carriage stopped. I leaned forward and shook my head. Julian descended first. When I lifted the curtain, his hand was there. I laid my hand in his and stepped down. He drew me into his arms at once, his cool palm settling at my waist. It warmed through. "Master Xuan, and this must be your lady. Fine taste. Ha!" The host, Yang Hao, greeted us at the door. What lady dressed like this? And what husband brought a wife to such a place? He knew how to talk. Julian hooked his fan at his belt and took my hand. Then I must hold her tighter. I patted his chest, playful. My lord makes fun of his concubine again. We entered the Yang estate. Opulence flooded the eye. Bare-armed dancers swayed in the court. Guests sprawled in pavilions with women in their laps. The pool had been drained and filled with wine. The scent was everywhere. A true lake of wine and forest of meat. Julian sat with me in a pavilion, greeting the men. He raised his sleeve to shield me and whispered at my ear, "I'll feed you wine, spill some on me." I looped my arms around his neck and murmured assent. "Why hide the beauty, Master Xuan?" a man in green teased. Julian sipped and fed me a sip. "I adore her. Must I not guard her?" Laughter went round. Their eyes slid over me, slick and ugly. I glanced toward the wine pool. Julian leaned in as if to play, and between us the wine sloshed over his clothes. "You're spoiled," he said aloud, tossing the cup, grip hard at my jaw. "Won't drink and even spill it on me?" I lowered my eyes, tugged his sleeve and kissed his fingers lightly, voice soft. "Let your concubine help you change. Don't be angry, we can drink in private, any way you like." He scooped me up in showy anger and carried me off, quick to admit fault. Behind us the jibes followed. "That little concubine, she melts your bones. No wonder he dotes on her." Ha! They couldn't wait. Heat rose in my face, stuffy anger pressed in my chest. Julian's steps paused once. He gave no sign he'd heard. The rear courtyard was heavily guarded. A sentry blocked us. "What are you two doing?" "My pet soiled my robe. I need a place to change," Julian snapped, stepping back from the blade. He played the rake to perfection. Yang Hao called from behind. "Ah, Master Xuan, let them through. He can change with me." We were led to a room. Yang Hao smiled, all courtesy, and shut us in. Silence returned. Julian stood at the door, listening a long time. "I'll be quick. I mapped the route, and I'm ready. Stay here. Don't you need my help? If the worst comes and you hear people outside, make a few convincing sounds." He grinned, the libertine still in him. "Go." I sat on the bed and waited, making a little performance whenever steps passed, just as he said. When he pushed in, I yanked the quilt up and shouted, "Who is it? Get out!" "It's me. Drop the act." His voice was oddly rough. Relief loosened my chest. I lowered the quilt and looked straight into his dark eyes. I must have sounded too loud. I had truly sold it. "Let's go," he said, calmer now. I went to him. He slipped an arm around me, straightened my hair, and opened the door. "Have 2 more drinks. Then say you're tired and we'll leave early." "All right." Back at the pavilion, the teasing resumed. "Too long to change. Punish him." "Not changing. Entranced by a pretty concubine." Julian laughed, toasted them one by one, fed me between words, and chatted in idle turns. When I judged the time right, I pretended the wine had won and asked to go. We took our leave and climbed into the carriage. When the wheels rolled to Schwan residence, everything felt settled. I exhaled and shut my eyes. Julian lifted the curtain. His voice came cool. So the crown prince does care. I looked up. Adrian stood there in white, hands behind his back. His face was carved like flawless jade. Not a line moved. Only his gaze, steady on me, shifted when he registered my dress. Then it stilled again. Yet I felt as if his emotion were deep sea. Storms hidden below, waiting to swallow all. I feared disturbing you, he said first, voice cool. So I inquired and waited here. Julian glanced back at me, jumped down. Forgive me, Your Highness. I followed. Julian held his hand out by habit. I looked toward Adrian, standing a little apart, and placed my fingers in Julian's. The skirt made stepping down hard. His hand was there, yet I felt stifled, as if still trapped in the carriage. After I changed and went to the main hall, Julian had poured 3 cups of tea. By imperial order, I came to investigate Peng City's embezzlement, he said. I asked Miss Chu to help. Adrian watched a tea leaf spin in his cup. I guessed, so I did not bring troops. Your Highness, would you step out? I said. I wish to speak to the Crown Prince alone. Julian hesitated, but only a heartbeat. Then he rose, shut the door, not too softly, not too hard. Still, his displeasure was plain. Adrian lifted his gaze to me. What do you want to say, Clara? His voice was cool and distant. I had no words. Julian's old question echoed, the one from the hunt, and everything between us that could not be erased. What could I explain? Should I say I loved Adrian now? My face went colder with every thought. His expression cooled with it. Before anything broke, the sound of fighting rang outside. We traded a look, stood, and pushed the door open. Black-clad men poured in. Adrian drew his sword and stepped before me. Bodies fell. I grabbed a dropped blade and covered him. We fought toward Julian and met him. One glance, and we vaulted the wall together. There were too many. If we didn't reach help, we would die. The road to the prefecture was blocked. Only the road out of the city lay open. We fought as we retreated. At the mouth of the woods, a sword lunged straight for Adrian's back. I didn't think. I seized the blade with my hand. Adrian spun, kicked the attacker away, and caught me, white-faced. I smiled to reassure him. From the corner of my eye, I saw Julian just as pale. The assassins learned our rhythm. They feinted at me and struck Adrian. Off guard, he took a sword to the stomach. We had thought the Yang estate sent them. Now we knew the target was Adrian. Clara, take His Highness into the woods, Julian barked, kicking a man aside. He didn't look back, only moved to shield us. I held Julian's gaze for a breath and saw his face. Go, the Crown Prince first. I didn't hesitate. Half carrying, half dragging, I pulled Adrian deep into the trees. Blood soaked his white robe, his face was whiter still. I sat him against an old trunk. My voice shook. Your Highness? I'm fine, don't be afraid. He forced a smile. Footsteps pattered, split up in search. I held my breath and didn't move. When the sound faded, tears slipped free. Stay hidden here. He yanked me back. I fell into his arms and must have pressed his wound. Don't you dare. His voice was weak, like a lover's murmur, not a threat. Why are you so good to me? He asked, forehead against my shoulder, voice light. I pressed the word like down and changed it into the tenderness I'd seen at the camp. Because you are gentle, kind, and... Liar, he cut in. I went still. I'm not as good as you think. He sounded self-mocking, lost in memory. I waited for more. He changed course. If I'm not that good, will you still want me? Yes. I didn't even have to think. Whatever he was good to me. I couldn't help but like him. He laughed softly, pleased. The usual restraint gone. I am trying to be better. He was so gentle that I put my arms around him and smoothed his hair. If you're afraid, I'll say it, he whispered, lifting himself with effort to look straight at me. I like you. Even Adrian could be nervous. I saw the curl of his fingers and my heart melted. But old tangs rose, the tangle of the past. He hadn't expected that. Color drained from his face. After a long hold, he turned aside. You don't like me? No, I shook my head. I'm unworthy of you. Saying it blew the cloud from my chest. I felt light for the first time. Even if fate never joined us, I did not regret it. If I like you, you are the best, he said, helpless, flicking my cheek. Moonlight sifted through leaves and veiled him. He looked so beautiful I dared not profane him. I lowered my head and told him everything. From start to end, I didn't meet his eyes. I feared what I'd read there, until he lifted my chin. His look was gentle. I do mind. A soft thorn pierced. Not too deep, but it hurt. I mind that I wasn't the one to find you, to save you. That the light in your memory isn't me. He didn't say I. He said I, not I, the crown prince. Calm, only regret and stubbornness. I stared, shocked. His mouth tilted. Don't look at me like that. It wasn't only him. I wanted to kiss him too. Without a second thought, I followed his hand and touched his cool, thin lips with mine. Soft, scented with that cool fragrance. He froze for a breath, then took the lead and deepened the kiss. When he let me go, he smoothed my hair, satisfied. Laughter warmed his voice. Still, I'm grateful Julian was a fool. I had never heard him speak so sharply. It was sweet. The heir, I began, remembering Adrian pressed a finger to my lips. They came from me. Don't worry about Julian. Adrian's guards combed the woods, found us, and brought us back to Peng City for bandages and rest. Julian was indeed unharmed. They had knocked him out and left him. When all was settled, Adrian and Julian returned to the capital to report and to trace the assassins. Mother cried at the sight of my wounded hand. After a few days in the south, she took me home slowly. The decree arrived as soon as we reached the capital. For relief work, the emperor offered Adrian any reward. He asked for a crown princess by imperial gift, Miss Clara Chu, second daughter of the Chu family. We received the edict on our knees. I hadn't expected I would be the only one happy. Father, mother, sister? What's wrong? I held the decree, unsure why they looked so grim. She's only been home a few days. The palace swallows people. How could Clara live there? The crown prince is good, but not worth my sister entering the palace. I understood. They were only grieving the parting and afraid for me. I laughed. It's just a betrothal. The wedding is far off. Anything can change. Calm them first. You're right. Maybe tomorrow the crown prince will. Don't talk nonsense. Father clapped a hand over mother's mouth and gave her a mock glare, only to have her pinch his ear in return. With a family like this, it was hard to leave. Adrian was far too much. While I was practicing, Father led Adrian in, reluctantly. I set down my sword and smiled. Your Highness, what brings you? He rubbed the jade at his waist. Father asked what I wanted. Other than this, I could think of nothing. He was actually nervous. I'm not angry, I said. You don't want to marry me? His fingers left the jade and found my hand. He squeezed, voice light as ever, not threatening, like discussing the weather. But I knew him better now. I do. A small laugh rose and curled into my ear. It tickled. He had no duties that day. He took me riding beyond the walls. As we passed the city's largest restaurant, Cloud Out Tower, I looked up by some dark tug and saw Julian, dead drunk, hanging over the second-floor rail. His toes nearly scraped the ground. I felt Adrian's chill glance and stepped back. The heir is going to fall. Don't worry, he won't die, Adrian said, brows easing. His words still tasted odd. He stepped forward, took my hand, and without turning his head, gave a cold order to the hidden guards. Send the heir of Northvale home. Because of Peng City? I asked. Royal secrets were not for me to pry into, so I let it go. Outside the city, he kept a string of horses. My eye went to a pitch-black one, head down, grazing. That is Black Wind, he said. Wild as they come. I said nothing and kept looking. Do you like it? Yes. Tame it, and it's yours. It was a top horse. He was generous. I smiled. Deal. But when I led Black Wind out, I learned why he agreed so fast. The horse seemed calm until you set a foot to mount. Then he lashed out. I planted my boot, vaulted up, clamped my legs, and flattened to his neck. He was fiercer than I'd guessed. He bolted and bucked. I slipped, clung to the reins, twisted my waist, curled my belly up, and dropped back into place. No matter how he raged, I stayed down. He tired, gave in, slowed to a walk. The moment I lifted my body, he bolted again. Good thing I'd kept my legs tight. What a treacherous beast. We lurched and thrashed. It took everything to settle down again. At last, he snorted in defeat. I swung down. Adrian had ridden hard alongside, face a touch pale. This horse is wicked, I said, grinning. But I like him. He leaned and hauled me onto his own saddle, one arm firm at my waist, eyes fixed on mine. Sweat dotted my brow. I reached to wipe it, but he was faster, drawing out a kerchief to dab my face. Clara is fierce, he said, the tension easing from his face. The warm wind of the fields carried his voice straight into my heart. And I like it. I want to ride Blackwind. I glanced at the suddenly obedient horse and tugged Adrian's sleeve. His face stiffened, barely. Ride him. If I'd known, I wouldn't have agreed. His childish tone made me laugh. I pushed off his chest, flew onto Blackwind, cracked the whip, and shot away. Chapter 4. I had grown used to going riding and hunting with Adrian, to wandering the southern market and watching street performers. Lately, the Emperor kept him busy with affairs that took him away for days. I wasn't used to it. After practice, I drifted to Tianfeng Tower to drink tea and listen to stories. The hero rescues beauty tale twisted into something wrong, actors and noble sons, when clearly it was about Julian and me. My face went white. I stood, clutching the cup, and turned to leave. A hand lunged from the corner and seized my wrist, blocking my path. Ying, we raised you in the House of Sorrow so long, can you just grab a big patron and forget us? The troop leader snarled. His fat, coarse face made me shiver. People leaned in, curious. He tightened his grip. I reached for the dagger in my sleeve. Don't, someone cried. The leader was making a show. She's our star from Yang City. If I hadn't suggested she attach herself to that young master, she wouldn't be dressed in gold and silk today. Now the floods ruined us. I begged her. She hits me. What a venomous girl. Not right. Shut up. Voices rose. A few recognized me as the second miss of the Southmere Marquis, future crown princess. The leader bawled and the tower filled with gossip. Isn't that the Marquis's second miss? Supposedly convalescing in the south, turns out she became a lowly performer. More than that, the edict just came. She's the emperor's choice for crown princess. How could someone like her match the crown prince? They say she even dallied with some noble. A performer is still a performer. Seeing his vile face, my rage flared. I almost killed him. I did not hesitate. My hand closed on the dagger in my sleeve. Whether morals had slipped or not, the eyes of the crowd watched. He had ruined my past and now my future. Adrian could accept my past, his people could not. I closed my eyes and moved to strike. A hand crushed my wrist and the dagger was quietly taken. I glanced. Julian stood near. The leader's face changed. He had recognized Julian. Master, you once took Ying. Before he could finish, Julian kicked him away and pulled me out. At the door, Julian ordered the guards, seal Tianfeng Tower, no one in or out. Outside the sun felt warm, but I shivered cold. Julian looked panicked and whispered, Clara, don't be afraid, it's fine, I won't. Useless. You can't stop mouths, they'll say anything, it's all true. I couldn't hold it. Julian saw me unraveling and bundled me into a carriage. The noise fell away and I steadied, hugging my knees in a daze. When we reached the Chu gate, a mounted messenger galloped up, dropped to his knees. We failed. People poured out of Tianfeng Tower. Just as I had feared. Julian's face blackened. He let the messenger go with a cold curse. The man stammered for mercy and fled. Clara, Julian began. I'm fine, don't worry, I said. I could take you away to the northern desert, never come back. His voice was thin as foam. Warmth eased the chill that gossip had left. I was grateful, but it was too late for such offers. Thank you, I smiled. His tenderness deserved no cruelty. I turned and went inside. The Tianfeng Tower rumor spread like wildfire across Phoenix City and reached the emperor. When the imperial edict called me to the palace, I opened the gate and found my parents and Joanna pacing the courtyard, anxious and sad. I smiled. I'll go to the palace for a while. Don't worry. All right, if you go, we'll petition to guard southern Anhui and never return. We'll all move to the frontier, Father said, frantic. Fine. I felt both comfort and sorrow. Comfort in my family's love, sorrow at what gossip had done. There could be no future with Adrian now. By the time I walked into the Hall of Administration, my heart was a still pond. But when I saw Adrian kneeling in white, I couldn't help the moisture that rose. Tears fell. Clara, you are a good girl, but you are not fit for my son, the emperor said quietly, his voice stern. I kowtowed and answered, your subject understands. No. Adrian broke decorum, voice hoarse. Fool. Say that again. The emperor's anger flared. My son only wants Clara, he will not marry otherwise. Guards. The crown prince's mouth runs wild. 40 strokes! The emperor ordered. Guards entered and took Adrian away. I could not keep silent at court. I turned and looked at Adrian outside, the blows coming down on his back. He knelt straight as if carved from bamboo. Something inside me blurred. Your Majesty, I will not marry the prince, I managed, voice thick. Before the emperor answered, Adrian looked up. Pain and pleading mingled in his gaze. I know you are a good child. I chastise Adrian so he remembers his duty, the emperor said. The last blow landed. Adrian's face went pale. I am not Clara, he tried. The emperor roared, Don't think I won't depose you. If the father wills another heir, I will accept it without complaint, Adrian said, voice floating. A yellow-clad figure flashed. The emperor stormed forward and slapped Adrian, shouting about his birthright and his dead mother. The slap and the words sank deeper than any cane. Adrian's pride cracked. The hall fell silent. The emperor left in a cold sweep. I stumbled forward and helped Adrian up. There was blood on his back, stars of red. My chest tightened. We carried him back to the Eastern Palace. He did not speak, like one dead inside. He lay on the bed. I used my dagger to cut his brocade and dress his wounds, applying salves with trembling hands. Do you know what I regret most? He asked. What? When you told me your past in Peng City, I planned to be gentle and kind. I wanted to be that man, so I did not burn down the house of sorrow. The lines of his face looked delicate and noble when the sickness and pain softened them. The confession landed like a cruel coin on my heart. I tied the bandages and forced a smile. I should leave the capital. Your Highness, take care. His hand gripped mine. Adrian's brows knit, his voice threaded with feeling, almost pleading, almost sorrowful. Clara, wait for me. Wait for what? Wait for him to renounce a kingdom and ride 1,000 miles south? I shook my head and freed my wrist. I like you, Your Highness. I do not regret our past, but I wish you to rule the realm, take gentle wives, raise many children. Saying it eased something inside, but the sorrow remained. Who can explain fate's cruelty? What you possess may be taken away. I walked out and could not hold back the tears. Only then came his rare, emotionally charged call. Clara. At home, dinner was set, rich and careful. My family's faces were overly cautious. My heart ached, but their care warmed me. I tried to lighten the mood. Father, do you really want to go to Anhui? Of course. Space is freer there. We'd be safer than in the capital. If not for your matches, I would never come back. Who knows what will happen? Mother scolded father for saying sad things. I offered a piece of fish. Try this. I'm not upset. Don't be so careful. Father warned he'd wait a few days before moving, lest the emperor misread our intent. I felt a sharp pang. If only I were a son who could win merit for the family. Why must a woman bear such rumor? I kept to the house, practice and books. Adrian visited a few times, but father discreetly declined. I understood and did not insist. Still, a dull sadness lingered. There was no future between Adrian and me, no reason to prolong pain. Father returned from court with a strange face. The emperor did not grant your mother's trip to Anhui? I asked. No, not that. He sent you elsewhere, north of the palace, to the Northvale King's post on the northern steppes. Why? There are uprisings and friction. The Northvale King should go but fell ill. The emperor assigned the post to your father. My hand tightened on the book. I remembered the obscene scene at the Northvale estate on New Year's Eve. Something tasted wrong. Does father know the North? Of course. I had no more questions. If Adrian would investigate the Northvale King, I could not pry. I only wished father safe. We packed for travel. I saddled Black Wind and told them, Father, Mother, I want to ride north. Mother's face showed worry. Father grinned. Black Wind deserves a run. We rode with the army out of the capital. At the gate I heard hooves and saw Julian. Sweat dotted his temple. Father is ill, I cannot leave. I'll visit you in the north when I can. Father barked. If Northvale is ill, the heir should tend him. Go see him. I shook my head and smiled at Julian. Farewell, take care. A white figure stood on the city wall. I sensed an urge to look back, but the wide plain wind blew it away. The northern snow waited. We rode and the cold deepened. The first snow feathered my shoulder as we crossed into the steppe. Father reported to the military governorship. Mother and the ladies lodged at the command house. We lit coals and dozed, but I could not read. Mother knocked and brought tea. Clara, the capital is far. Mother will arrange matches for you here. Do you wish to marry? I stopped, looked at her and answered, Mother, I want to be filial like my sister. I don't want marriage. She thought I still longed for a quiet family life. I did not. I only had once wanted one person to stay forever. That person was gone. Mother dabbed at her eyes. My poor child. I hugged her and comforted her for a long while, then could not read further. In the north, my father ruled. He took me to drill with the troops. At first the soldiers mocked me. Father ordered challengers. I bested 13 men. The camp cheered. Father beamed. A strange heat rose inside me. Pride, abandon, a fierce joy. I rode with patrols and fought raiders. The first time a blade sliced an enemy's throat, fear struck, but it drowned in the surge. The fire inside me turned to courage. I killed and felt the rush of victory, but I had not known real war. Then my father called me to his tent with a grave face. Danger and conspiracy waited. I opened a sealed letter. Hatred flooded me. My blood ran hot. I nearly spat blood. The late emperor once favored the Northvale King, as yet chose the present sovereign. The current emperor was kind. The Northvale King hid ambition and plotted. He had long conspired. Father held large forces in Anhui. The Northvale King wanted to hold father's weakness, me. He had someone seize me as a child, drug my memory, and sell me to the House of Sorrow in Yang City. He arranged for Joanna to meet Julian, to create openings. When plans failed there, Northvale used darker moves. Adrian's survival became a complication. After an attempted assassination, Northvale destroyed me, pushed father from the capital, colluded with raiders, and sent father north. Father became trapped, his life in Northvale's hands. Who in the army could be trusted? Father's eyes burned. The letter came secretly from the emperor. He had been investigating Northvale. At last, my case gave him a thread to follow. If unrest flared in the capital, we must march to defend it. To be safe, father handed me the tiger tally. He unfastened the token from his neck and offered it. I did not take it. I knelt. Father will be safe. If the raiders break through, I will not abandon the north, even if I die. Clara, can you die for the realm? A hatred rose in me I'd never felt before. I took the tally with hands that trembled. It burned at my chest. Father smiled and patted my shoulder. There is still a chance. Find the traitors. Hope bloomed. I read documents by lamplight each night. I hunted 3 suspects and killed them quietly in the night. The next day, father struck me. You fool! Who taught you to kill soldiers in secret? He shouted. He slapped me. I felt nothing but certainty. I had proof on those men. For the good of secrecy and stability, we could not make a public trial. Could I thus let them live? Who sleeps safe beside a traitor? Not on the frontier. Father left for the field before we reconciled. The raiders advanced in force. Father took 40,000 men to battle. Documents fell and the Deputy General, Shi Singh, was revealed. A Northvale man. I leapt onto Black Wind and raised the tiger tally to marshal troops. Why have a woman lead the troops? One thug shouted. A lackey named David threw down his sword and charged. I glanced at the bow, hid the tally, notched an arrow, and shot Feng dead before he could react. Silence. Then a thunderous roar. We followed General Chu to battle. We mustered quickly to Tianxian Valley. Corpses dotted the field. The raiders rained arrows from high ground. Our men held, straining. My father stood before them, 3 arrows in front, 6 behind, still upright, shielding the living. Kill! I screamed, voice raw. We routed the raiders. I loosed an arrow and split the enemy leader's head. We chased them, took the raiders' land, and cut off their chieftain's head. They signed a surrender. Only when a people is driven into an abyss will it fight to the end. We left the raiders' lands amid cheers, but my spirit did not lift. My father lay dead. Returning to the city, the air was strange, victory shadowed by grief. Mother fainted beside the troops. Joanna held her, eyes red. I set down my sword and smoothed Mother's hair. Sister, care for Mother. I ride to the capital. Phoenix City is in chaos. Northvale has rebelled. All right, Joanna said, voice raw but steady. We are our father's daughters. If the sky falls, we must stand. At father's unclosed coffin, I wept freely. I drained wine with my tears, burned incense, bowed 3 times, and left without a long vigil. Northvale colluded with raiders, treason and betrayal. I called the 200,000 soldiers of the north to march on the capital. I raised my sword and shouted, "March on the capital! March on the capital!" We rode day and night. In 7 days we reached Phoenix City. The capital had held out with pain. When they saw us, cheers burst like fire. I looked at the enemy line. Julian stood there beside the Northvale King. A bitter laugh escaped me. My father's blood cried out. We could not share the same sky. I wanted them cut to pieces. I raised my right hand. Before I could order the charge, Julian called out between the 2 armies. His voice was hoarse. I didn't know. I drew my sword and stared at him, cold. So what? Treason damns 9 generations. You know that's not what I mean. He looked gaunt. His long eyes were shadowed with sleepless black. Gloom wrapped him. The Northvale King was all ambition. Julian was loyal, but he loved his father more. Between duty and filial piety, he chose the latter. As for him and me, smoke and cloud long gone. Even the light in my memory had been part of a plan. What did it matter now? I crushed the last sting in my chest. No more hesitation. I snapped the whip and spurred my horse. My army thundered forward. I had not expected this. Julian did not raise a blade against us. He stepped alone and blocked a thunderous strike meant for the Northvale King. His dark eyes locked on me. 1,000 feelings churned there. I could not read them. The Northvale King's line was already breaking. At last he collapsed to his knees. I caught Julian as the color left his face. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. I don't need this. I know, he whispered. To die for you is the best end for me. His lips bent with effort. It was like the first time I ever saw him. I lowered my eyes. A shattered magnolia hairpin lay in his palm. My eyes burned dry and hotter. He had once hurled the hairpin at me. I pawned it again later, and told myself I'd made money twice. I took the broken jade and slid it into my armor. Then I raised my sword. Swords clattered to the ground all along the Northvale ranks. Phoenix City's gates swung open. I rode black wind through the roar of the crowd. Mountains and seas of people surged around us. It was nothing like the day I left. Things remain. People change. In the palace, the Emperor's gaze stirred when he saw my silver armor. I knelt and bowed. Your Majesty, forgive me. My father fell to a traitor's plot in the north. I obeyed his last wish and led troops to the capital. Rise, he said. I am not a pedant. Such merit is no crime. I stood. His face was pale. I frowned. His health had broken. He granted rewards. I inherited my father's title and rose 1 rank. I became the first woman in Great Zhao to hold a peerage. Ding Yuan Southmere, Duke by patent. He gave me a rightful name. He set me to hold the northern frontier. I would finish my father's work and guard our realm. The raiders were broken. Still, I could not forget the northern wind and snow. I did not wish to stay in the capital. With the edict in hand, I strolled toward the gate. A white figure stood ahead. Your subject greets your highness, I said, bowing to Adrian. He did not answer. We stood there. Then he stepped forward, took my arm, and lifted me up. I fell into his reddened eyes. My heart clenched hard. His thin lips moved. He seemed to have many words. They turned into 2 cool ones. My condolences. I had thought myself calm. 2 simple words tore the seal. Grief and grievance poured out. Tears would not stop. He pressed my head to his shoulder and patted my back. When I quieted, his voice was rough. You would not see me. I did not plan to see you either. But when I thought of my Clara, alone, bearing your father's death, cutting through the raiders, fighting back to Phoenix, suffering so much, perhaps hurt, I could not endure it. My mind emptied, my heart turned soft, then twisted and hurt again. My prince was so good, he was not mine. I pushed him away and wiped my face. I bowed again. I depart for the north tomorrow. Forgive the breach, I will take my leave. I did not wait for his answer. I walked on. As I passed him, he caught my wrist. I looked back. His face was white and fragile as glass. He held himself tight. Wait for me. Let me settle everything. I will come to you. I cannot deny it. Hope flickered. My heart raced, but the cold wind woke me. I drew my hand back. Take care, your highness. He did not hold me again. I walked and walked. I did not dare turn. At last, at the corner, I looked back. The man in white still stood there, unmoving, like he had stood there for ages. When I led the army north, my mother and Joanna waited on the city wall. They stood together in the snow, white on white, so beautiful. But still a flaw. Father was gone. I snapped my whip and rode ahead into the city. They came down to meet me. Clara, you have your father's bearing. Good, good. Come home. From then on, I drilled the army by day, and at dusk, I ate with Mother and Joanna. I played with Firefire. I read military texts and slept. 4 years passed like a blink. General, a white-robed gentleman asks to see you. The runner burst into my tent. At the word white, my heart jumped. Years had gone by. I still could not help it. I knew it would not be him. Still I hurried out. Far off, a white figure stood in the endless snow, slim, straight, one with the sky and earth. Near my home, my courage shrank. My steps slowed, your highness. Clara, I'm here. Adrian turned. His eyes softened. We stood in northern snow, yet I saw 1,000 southern flowers in bloom. On our wedding day, the new emperor rode 1,000 miles to the frontier. Adrian's smile cooled. Your Majesty, don't you think this is absurd? Brother, I just missed you. And I wanted to see my sister-in-law, Emperor Zhou Fu said, face small and pitiful. No one in the north knew the emperor's face. I tugged Adrian's sleeve. Don't be angry. After the ceremony, we can escort His Majesty home. Adrian looked down at our joined scarlet robes. His lips curved. He'll go back the way he came. He loved his brother. He did not flatter him. I could not say that aloud. The emperor played and laughed with the guests. The racket followed us to the bridal door. They all knew General Chu's future husband looked gentle and kind, but had a cold authority. Feet stopped. Only the emperor didn't know. He rushed forward. Adrian pressed a hand on his shoulder and smiled. That's enough for today. Thank you all. Silence. Then a chorus of yes. Adrian pulled me into the bridal room. He lifted my beaded crown with patience and handed me the nuptial cup. Clara, I am very happy today. I smiled, took the cup, and looked at him in red. He was almost too beautiful. So am I. We drank cross-cupped wine. He leaned to my ear. His voice had a little hook in it. Clara can be even happier. Before I could ask, he pushed me into the quilt. Pins flew, sash and collar loosened, kisses burned, his cool hands lit fires. I clung to his narrow shoulders and watched the canopy sway. I finally understood what even happier meant. But who was happier, me or him? Snow fell all night. It still fell at dawn. When I woke, the world outside was white and thick. Adrian sat at the table with a faint smile and a book. He put it down and came to me. My lady is awake. Why stay in bed? Do you want your husband to? No. I cut him off, flustered, his brows pinched, puzzled. What is my lady thinking? I only meant to pull you up. Heat climbed my face. I jumped from bed, slipped on my shoes, and fled to the mirror. You were smiling like that. How could I not think wrong? He hadn't expected the turn. He blinked, then laughed softly. My lady is right. He came closer, took my brow ink, tilted my chin, and drew carefully. Do you know how? I asked. I can do anything, except bear children. You are thinking too far ahead. Indeed. His smile deepened. Somehow he had me again. I looked at the woman in the mirror. His touch was deft. I turned and wrapped my arms around his waist. Husband, thank you for coming for me. He had set down 1,000 miles of rivers and mountains and his mother's last wish. He crossed the world to find me. I had no words but thanks. Just love me. Always, he said. I will. Adrian Zhou. Afterward, Adrian learned early that the emperor and empress were ill-matched. His sister Susan often cried in his arms. Why does father never look at us? Why? The emperor and empress had married young. They should have lived in harmony. The emperor broke his promise and loved another. The empress's temper was fierce. She hated the emperor. She dared not touch Susan. When the rage peaked, she poured it on Adrian. He wanted to hate her. But when she awoke from fury, she would tend his bruises, hold him, apologize, and make him sweets. One drunken night, the emperor returned to the empress and conceived a third child. He felt no guilt to his wife. He felt guilty to his favored consort. The empress labored hard and faded. She could have lived. She chose death. Adrian covered his mouth and wept outside the door. He heard her last words. I give the title of empress to that woman. You give the heir seat to my son. Fair. She will never have a child. The emperor cracked. Poisonous woman. Even with no proof, Adrian knew the emperor believed the empress had harmed his consort. Adrian did not believe it. The empress died. He became crown prince. The emperor's love came late. Guilt made him kinder. He never raised that woman to empress. Sometimes he even showed care. Adrian found it laughable. He learned to hide every feeling. He became the correct, gentle heir. But he was still young. His heart was soft. A girl poked it once. Only once. It was enough to plant a fire that would one day run wild. When the empress died, the palace mocked him. Monster, your own mother died and you don't cry. The emperor wanted to scold him, then saw the red rim of his eyes. He patted Adrian's shoulder and left. The emperor thought the boy was stoic. He was wrong. Adrian was acting for his admirable father. He wanted to cry. But every time he remembered that absurd bargain, he thought he had no right. During the winter hunt he stumbled and fell. He seized the chance and cried aloud. No one was near. At last he had a reason to be sad. It hurt so much. After the pain passed, he would not hurt again. Or cry. Then a little girl in a red jacket crouched before him. She held an awkward bow and a small medicine pouch. "Don't cry. This will stop the pain. I have candy too. It's sweet. You won't hurt." She stuffed a handful of candy into his palm. His grief broke. He stared coldly. She flinched. He was annoyed and didn't want to apologize. "Boys can cry," she said. "I won't look down on you." He wanted to laugh. He held it in. The girl left, for many years. At Gowan Temple he saw her again and knew at once. Clara. The gentle mask had fused to his bones. He saw her lost in the woods and came. He saw her hurt and helped. He even carried her. He hated injustice. The Empress had bargained for fairness as she died. He would uphold it. Then she shot the firefox. Something plucked a string. He remembered the candy. She saved his full moon bow from a wager. He could not reject Julian in public. When he agreed, he wanted to win. All his life he had believed anything worth wanting must be won by himself. For the first time he found someone would win it for him. It felt good. He wanted more. So even when he pulled her into the rock crevice, his mind wandered. The girl in his arms smelled good, but he wanted his own cool scent to settle on her more. At the Lantern Festival, Clara saved Susan. He watched them on the bank soaked to the bone. Panic turned to a hard, bright joy. Everything moved as he had hoped. In Peng City he saw Clara in silk and flame. He thought his eyes deceived him. His heart said otherwise. He learned a few things. He refused to ruin Julian's work. He waited outside Xuan residence, irritated for the first time. Clara took Julian's hand to step down. His irritation peaked. He clenched the hand he almost raised. Cold leaked from him. Assassins came instead of words. Clara caught a blade for him without thinking. Fear and anger came first, then gratitude and delight. He fell. Clearly. When he heard her past, he remembered he was not a good man, not a wise ruler. The mask had been on too long. Now he discovered he wanted to kill. He wanted to burn the house of sorrow, turn to ash the place that made her hurt, erase the days she had loved another. Wouldn't that make her stop hurting? Wouldn't she forget? But she said he was gentle, kind. He could not let her be wrong. He wanted to keep her. He asked for an imperial betrothal. Days with her were joy. Work grew heavy. He could not take her out. He went a few days without seeing his treasure. Then it happened. He knew his father too well. He ran to kneel in the hall. The emperor moved faster than expected. Clara arrived early. There was no time to speak. Adrian chose the stupidest way. He begged for the decree to be withdrawn. For the first time, it was clear. He did not want to be crown prince. Maybe he had rejected it the day he heard that bargain outside the Empress's door. Clara left. Northvale rebelled. Adrian had expected rebellion. He did not care to fight the man. Let his wise father have that. He had not foreseen betrayal of the realm, the death of the Southmere Marquis, the harm to his Clara. He laid his plans in the capital. He starved the rebels and let them into the trap. He did not tell the emperor. Better to pin hope on Clara. Better to give the merit to her, to give her a name, to give her freedom. He had not expected Julian to die for her under the wall. He saw her tears. His heart hurt. His heart panicked. He feared she would not forget that man. He did not even return to the Eastern Palace to put on the proper face. He rushed to block her path. When she cried on his shoulder, he nearly lost control. He wanted to hold her until she melted into him. He used all his strength to be gentle. Her turn at the corner was enough to carry him through solitude. He raised the brother who was not close to him. Patiently. Great Zhou would belong to Zhou Fu. The Empress would not have died for nothing. He had a hawk to chase. In the northern snow. He went alone. And the hawk was waiting,